Admiral HFY stared at the communication board in front of him, his four eyes blinking in sequence as they always did when he felt confused or worried for 847 standard cycles. The Veltar Empire had maintained constant contact with the Galactic Trade Consortium every single day. Without fail, their massive network sent out thousands of messages across space, trade agreements, military reports, diplomatic communications, and routine status updates from their 300 colony worlds. Now there was nothing not even static complete. Silence from one of the galaxy's three most powerful civilizations. Run the diagnostic again. HFY commanded his communications officer, a young Thraxian whose tentacles moved nervously over the control panel. Sir, I have run it 12 times already, the officer replied, his voice trembling slightly. All our equipment works perfectly, but there are no signals coming from any Veltar territory. HFY's large frame shifted in his command chair as he considered this impossible situation. The Veltar Empire controlled nearly a quarter of known space, with the most advanced military fleet outside of the mysterious Eternal Collective. They had been the galaxy's dominant slave trading power for over 2,000 years. Their iron grip on hundreds of developing worlds, making them incredibly wealthy and powerful. Such an empire did not simply vanish overnight. When did we receive their last transmission? He asked. 43 standard hours ago, sir, came the immediate reply. It was a routine cargo manifest from their mining operations in the Kepler sector. And nothing since then? Nothing at all, sir. HFY stood up and walked to the massive viewing screen that showed a real-time map of known space. The Veltar territory appeared as a large red section on the galactic map. But now it felt like looking at a black hole in their understanding of the universe. Prepare 3 scout fleets, he ordered. I want reconnaissance missions sent to the nearest Veltar border worlds immediately. Sir, should we contact the Eternal Collective about this? His chief of staff asked. The Admiral's eyes narrowed as he considered this option. The Collective had always been secretive and rarely involved themselves in galactic affairs. But they might have information about what happened to their fellow superpower. Not yet, he decided. Let us gather some intelligence first, before we start a panic across known space. The first scout fleet reached Veltar border world nexus. Prime 18 hours later, Captain Mordian of the scout ship Bright Wing sent back a report that made no sense whatsoever. Admiral, Nexus Prime appears to be completely abandoned, but there are no signs of battle, destruction, or any kind of disaster. HFY leaned forward in his chair. Explain what you mean by abandoned, sir. The entire planet is empty of Veltar inhabitants, but all the infrastructure remains intact and functional, came the crackling voice through subspace communication. The power grids are still running. The cities look like everyone just walked away from their daily activities. And there is no damage anywhere. What about the slave populations they kept there? Gone as well, sir. But here's the strange part. The slave barracks and holding facilities appear to have been systematically emptied rather than destroyed. Admiral, HFY felt a chill run through his body. An empire did not simply evacuate entire worlds without leaving some kind of trace or explanation. Any signs of spacecraft departures? Negative, sir. No burn marks from mass evacuations, no debris fields, no emergency beacons. Check the planetary databases. There was a long pause before Captain Mordian responded. Sir, all local databases have been completely wiped. But the wiping appears to have been done carefully and systematically, not in panic or haste. The second and third scout fleets reported identical findings from other Veltar border worlds. Complete abandonment. No damage, no clues, and systematically wiped databases, but it was the report from the Deep Space Monitoring Station at grid reference 347 Alpha that finally provided their first real lead. Admiral, the technician's voice carried excitement and fear in equal measure. "We have detected massive energy signatures moving through former Veltar space." "What kind of energy signatures?" "Unknown configuration, sir. But the power readings are unlike anything in our databases." SciFi ordered the monitoring station to send all sensor data to the consortium's best scientists for analysis 3 days later. Chief Science Officer Dr. Kalana brought him results that defied explanation. "Admiral, these energy signatures belong to spacecraft, but their design and power systems are completely foreign to us." She activated a holographic display showing sensor readings and computer reconstructions based on gravitational displacement and energy output. "We estimate these vessels are massive, some possibly larger than our biggest dreadnoughts." "How many ships are we talking about?" "Conservative estimate suggests at least 200 vessels. But the formation patterns indicate this is only a portion of their total fleet." SciFi stared at the display, trying to process what this meant. Some unknown civilization had apparently eliminated the entire Veltar Empire using technology that the consortium could not even identify. Dr. Kalana, "Have we detected any communication attempts from these unknown vessels?" "No direct attempts to contact us, sir. But we did find something interesting." The hologram changed to show ancient monitoring buoys at the very edge of galactic space. These old warning buoys recorded massive hyperspace disturbances 6 days ago. 6 days? SciFi calculated quickly. That was 1 day before the Veltar went silent. "Exactly, sir. And the recordings show vessels of completely unknown design entering our galaxy from dark space beyond the outer rim." The Admiral studied the grainy images of sleek, predatory-looking ships unlike anything in known galactic civilization. Their hull designs suggested advanced technology. But more importantly, they moved with purpose and coordination that indicated military planning. "Dr. Kalana, in your professional opinion, what are we dealing with here?" The scientist's expression grew grim. "Admiral, I believe we are looking at evidence of a completely unknown spacefaring civilization that possesses technology far beyond our current understanding." "And they eliminated the Veltar Empire in less than 2 days? Based on our timeline analysis?" "Yes, sir." SciFi walked back to his command chair and sat down heavily. The implications were staggering. If an unknown force could eliminate one of the galaxy's superpowers in such a short time, what did that mean for the rest of galactic civilization? "Prepare an emergency communication to the Galactic Trade Consortium High Council," he ordered, "and send a priority message to the Eternal Collective as well." "What should the message say, sir?" Admiral SciFi looked out at the stars and wondered how many other civilizations might be watching and waiting in dark space. Beyond their knowledge, tell them we have a problem that threatens the stability of known space, and we need to convene an emergency session immediately. As his communications officer began transmitting the urgent messages, SciFi could not shake the feeling that their galaxy had just become a much more dangerous place. 3 weeks after the Veltar Empire vanished, consortium scientists finally found their first real breakthrough in understanding what had happened. Dr. Kalana burst into Admiral SciFi's office without following proper protocol, her excitement overriding military courtesy. "Admiral, we found something," she announced, holding a data crystal in her manipulator arms. "Partial transmission records from a damaged relay station in the outer Veltar territories." SciFi immediately cleared his schedule and followed her to the main analysis laboratory, where a team of his best technicians had been working around the clock. "Show me what you discovered," he commanded. The main display screen flickered to life, showing static-filled audio and video recordings that had been painstakingly reconstructed from damaged data fragments. "These recordings are from the personal communication logs of Emperor Kashvar himself, Dr. Kalina explained. The relay station's backup systems captured and stored them automatically before the station went offline. The first recording showed the familiar imposing figure of the Veltar Emperor, his massive frame covered in ceremonial armor as he sat on his throne, but his expression showed annoyance rather than the usual imperial confidence. Summon Admiral Vexter immediately, the Emperor commanded someone off-screen. I want to know why we are receiving communications from primitives in an unexplored sector. Admiral Zephahai leaned closer to the screen. Primitives? Keep watching, sir. Dr. Kalana urged. The recording jumped to what appeared to be a formal diplomatic session in the Emperor's throne room. Your Imperial Magnificence, Admiral Vexter reported, his voice carrying obvious disdain. The unknown aliens call themselves humans and claim to represent something called the Terran Federation. Emperor Kashvar laughed, a sound that echoed through his massive throne chamber. Humans? Never heard of them, which means they control no significant territory. Correct. Your Imperial Magnificence, our star charts show no record of any major civilization in their sector. Then why are they wasting our time with communications? Admiral Vexter's expression grew more serious. They are making demands, Your Imperial Magnificence. Demands? The Emperor's voice rose with incredulous anger. Unknown primitives are making demands of the Veltar Empire? They request immediate cessation of what they call slave raids on developing worlds, and demand that we release all enslaved populations under our control. The Emperor stood up from his throne, his massive form radiating fury. Request? Demand? Who do these creatures think they are? Should I prepare a military response, Your Imperial Magnificence? No, Emperor Kashvar replied with obvious contempt. Send them a standard dismissal message and ignore any further communications. The recording ended, and Dr. Kalina quickly loaded the next fragment. This one was recorded 2 days later. Sir, the screen showed the same throne room, but Emperor Kashvar now appeared agitated and angry. Admiral Vexter, why are these humans still sending us messages? Your Imperial Magnificence, they have sent the same communication 17 times in the past 48 hours. What does it say? They repeat their demands for the release of all enslaved populations, and they have added a timeline. Emperor Kashvar's eyes narrowed dangerously. Timeline? They state that we have 72 standard hours to comply with their demands, or they will take what they call corrective action. The Emperor began laughing again, but this time his laughter sounded forced and angry. Corrective action? Against the Veltar Empire? He gestured at the massive throne room around him. Do they have any idea who they are threatening? Intelligence reports suggest they control perhaps a dozen star systems at most. Your Imperial Magnificence, and we control 300 worlds with the galaxy's second largest military fleet. Exactly. Your Imperial Magnificence, Emperor Kashvar sat back down on his throne. Send them a message explaining that the Veltar Empire does not negotiate with insignificant civilizations. Should we mention our military capabilities? No, these primitives are not worth the effort of detailed threats. The recording ended again, and Dr. Kalana prepared the final fragment. This is the last transmission we recovered, sir, she said quietly. It was recorded exactly 72 hours after the first human communication. The screen showed chaos in the throne room. Emperor Kashvar stood before his command staff, but his expression had changed completely from confident arrogance to shock and growing fear. Report, he demanded of his military commanders. Your Imperial Magnificence. Admiral Vexter's voice shook slightly. We are detecting massive hyperspace signatures appearing simultaneously throughout our territory. How massive? Conservative estimates suggest over 200 unknown vessels. all appearing at the same time across a 400 light-year area. Emperor HFY gripped his throne. 200 ships appearing everywhere at once? That is impossible. The sensor readings are confirmed. Your Imperial Magnificence. What are their positions? Every single slave world in our empire, every major military installation, and every administrative center. The Emperor's face went pale. All of them? Simultaneously? Yes, Your Imperial Magnificence. And they are broadcasting a message on all frequencies. Play it. A new voice filled the throne room, speaking in calm, measured tones that somehow carried more authority than all of Emperor HFY's shouting. This is Admiral Sarah Chun of the Terran Federation, the voice announced. Your 72 hours have expired. We gave you an opportunity to release your enslaved populations voluntarily. You chose to ignore our request. We are now implementing corrective action. All Veltar military forces will stand down. Immediately, all enslaved populations will be liberated. The Veltar Empire as a political entity is hereby dissolved. Resistance will be futile. You have 10 minutes to acknowledge this message and order your forces to surrender. Emperor HFY stared at the communication equipment in stunned silence before turning to his military staff. Admiral Vexter, what are our fleet positions? Your Imperial Magnificence. We have military vessels responding to every location where these humans have appeared. Excellent. Show them what happens to primitives who challenge the Veltar Empire. But Admiral Vexter's expression showed only confusion and growing panic. Your Imperial Magnificence. Our fleets are reporting something unprecedented. What kind of unprecedented? The human vessels are not responding to our weapons, and our ships are being systematically disabled without taking damage themselves. Disabled how? Unknown. Your Imperial Magnificence. But our vessels remain intact while their weapon systems and engines simply stop functioning. Emperor HFY sank back onto his throne as reports continued flooding in from across his empire. Your Imperial Magnificence. Another officer announced. We are receiving surrender orders from Fleet Command. Surrender orders? Who issued surrender orders? You did. Your Imperial Magnificence, according to these communications. I issued no such orders. But even as the Emperor protested, more reports arrived of Veltar forces, laying down their weapons across hundreds of worlds. The final moments of the recording showed Emperor HFY standing alone in his throne room as his staff fled or collapsed in panic. They're not negotiating, he said to himself, his voice barely a whisper. They're delivering an ultimatum. The transmission ended with static. Dear Kalena turned to Admiral HFY, whose 4 eyes remained fixed on the blank screen. Sir, based on our analysis of these recordings, the humans gave the Veltar exactly what they promised. 72 hours to comply voluntarily. And when the Emperor refused, they systematically dismantled the entire empire in what appears to have been a coordinated operation across hundreds of light years. Admiral HFY stood in silence, trying to comprehend the implications of what they had just witnessed. An unknown civilization had just demonstrated the ability to eliminate a galactic superpower in a matter of hours, using technology and coordination beyond anything in known space. Dr. Kelena, do we have any idea where these humans came from? The deep space monitoring data suggests they originated from beyond the galactic rim, sir. How long do you think they have been observing us? The scientist checked her data crystal before responding. Admiral, I believe we should assume they have been watching galactic civilization for a very long time. Admiral HFY received the most disturbing intelligence report of his long military career. 6 weeks after the Veltar Empire disappeared, Captain Mordian had spent those weeks leading detailed investigation teams through former Veltar territory. And what they discovered defied every assumption about military conquest that existed in known galactic history. Admiral Captain Mordian reported via secure communication from the former Veltar capital world. "We need to completely revise our understanding of what happened here." "Explain," SciFi commanded, though he dreaded hearing more impossible revelations about these mysterious humans. "Sir, the humans did not simply defeat the Veltar Empire." Captain Mordian paused, seemingly searching for adequate words. "They surgically dismantled their entire civilization with precision that borders on the supernatural." SciFi activated his personal holographic display to review the investigation files as Captain Mordian continued his briefing. "Let me walk you through what we have discovered. Sir, every single slave world in Veltar territory was liberated simultaneously on the same day. We are talking about 237 worlds across 400 light-years of space, all freed at exactly the same time." Admiral SciFi studied the tactical implications of such coordination. "Captain, coordinating simultaneous operations across that distance would require communication and logistics capabilities beyond anything we have ever seen." "Agreed, sir. But that is only the beginning. Each liberated world shows the same pattern. The slave populations were carefully evacuated from their containment facilities, provided with medical care, and given temporary housing in facilities that the humans constructed in a matter of hours." "Constructed how?" "Unknown technology, sir. But the buildings appear to have been assembled using some form of advanced matter manipulation." SciFi leaned back in his command chair, trying to process information that challenged everything he thought he knew about the limits of technology. "Continue your report." "Captain, the former Veltar military installations present an even more puzzling situation." Captain Mordian transmitted detailed scan data to Admiral SciFi's display. "None of the Veltar military bases were destroyed, sir. Instead, they have been converted into refugee processing centers and medical facilities for the liberated slave populations. The weapons storage areas now contain medical supplies. The barracks have been modified to provide comfortable housing for families, and the command centers have been turned into administrative offices." Admiral SciFi stared at the scan results, which showed former military fortresses transformed into what appeared to be humanitarian aid stations. "Captain, are you telling me that these humans conquered an empire and then used their enemy's military infrastructure to help their victims?" "That is exactly what I am telling you, sir. But there is more. We have accounted for the entire Veltar ruling class and military command structure." SciFi's eyes widened. "Accounted for them how?" "They are all alive and unharmed, sir. Every member of the Veltar imperial family, every military commander, every government official, and every administrative bureaucrat has been relocated to a single world in their former territory." "Which world?" "Barren Rock, designated Veltar Prime 7, sir. Previously uninhabited except for automated mining operations." Captain Mordian transmitted additional data showing the relocated Veltar population. The humans provided them with basic shelters, water purification systems, food production facilities, and essential medical supplies, but no technology beyond what they need for basic survival. Admiral SciFi studied the images of former galactic rulers now living in simple prefabricated structures on a desert world. "How many Veltar have been relocated to this world?" "Approximately 50 million individuals, sir, representing the entire power structure of their former empire, and they are simply expected to survive there." The humans left them detailed instructions for agriculture, basic manufacturing, and sustainable population management. Essentially, they have been given the tools to build a civilization from scratch. But without any of their former technological advantages, SciFi stood up and walked to his viewing screen. staring out at the stars while contemplating the implications of such precise social engineering. Captain, what happened to all of the Veltar technological assets? Redistributed to their former slave populations. Sir, every starship, every manufacturing facility, every piece of advanced equipment has been transferred to the liberated worlds. The humans appear to have conducted a complete inventory of Veltar resources and systematically redistributed everything based on the needs of the victim populations. Admiral HFY turned back to his communication console. Are you telling me that these humans not only conquered an empire, but also reorganized galactic society in the process? Yes, sir. And they accomplished all of this without firing a single shot at civilian targets. Our investigation shows that human forces specifically avoided any action that would harm non-combatant populations. Even Veltar civilians who were not part of the ruling elite were simply relocated to worlds where they could live peacefully, alongside other species. Captain Mordian paused before delivering his most significant finding. Admiral, we have discovered something else that I believe you need to know immediately. What is it? Long-range sensors have detected human vessels establishing permanent defensive perimeters around every liberated slave world. Defensive perimeters? Yes, sir. They appear to be staying to protect the populations they freed. Admiral HFY felt a chill run through his entire body as he realized what this meant. Captain, are you saying that these humans have essentially annexed former Veltar territory? Not annexed, sir. More like they have become protectors. The liberated worlds maintain their own governments and autonomy, but human ships patrol their space to prevent any future attempts at conquest or enslavement. Have any of these human forces attempted to contact our investigation teams? No direct contact, sir, but they clearly know we are here. Our ships have been scanned multiple times by human vessels, but they take no hostile action as long as we remain in designated observation areas. Admiral HFY returned to his command chair and began reviewing all the investigation data that Captain Mordian had transmitted. The scope of what the humans had accomplished was staggering. They had not simply defeated an empire. They had restructured an entire section of galactic society according to their own moral standards. Captain, based on your observations, what is your assessment of human military capabilities? Admiral, I believe we are dealing with a civilization that possesses technology so far beyond our understanding that our current military doctrine is essentially obsolete. They demonstrated the ability to disable our most advanced warships without damaging them. Coordinate simultaneous operations across hundreds of light years, and reshape entire worlds in a matter of days. More importantly, sir, they did all of this while carefully avoiding unnecessary casualties and protecting innocent populations. Admiral HFY closed his eyes and tried to imagine how galactic civilization would respond to the knowledge that such a powerful and morally driven force now existed in known space. Captain, continue your investigation and report any new developments immediately. Yes, sir, but Admiral, what is it? Sir, I believe we should prepare for the possibility that these humans might contact us directly. Based on their pattern of behavior, they appear to be very interested in the moral conduct of galactic civilizations. And given the consortium's own involvement in various questionable trade practices, we may find ourselves facing the same kind of scrutiny that the Veltar Empire received. Admiral HFY considered this possibility and realized that Captain Mordian was probably right. If the humans were systematically evaluating galactic civilizations based on their treatment of weaker species, then every government in known space might eventually face judgment from these mysterious and overwhelmingly powerful beings. Captain, maintain your current investigation protocols and prepare detailed reports on everything you have observed. If these humans do contact us, I want to be ready with complete information about their capabilities and intentions." As the communication ended, Admiral HFY stared at his tactical displays and wondered whether galactic civilization was witnessing the emergence of a new supreme authority or the beginning of a fundamental transformation in how intelligent species interacted with each other. Either way, he suspected that the galaxy would never be the same again. The human diplomatic vessel appeared without warning in the heart of consortium space, materializing directly outside Central Command Station as if it had simply stepped through reality itself. Admiral HFY received the alert while reviewing intelligence reports in his quarters, and by the time he reached the command center, his entire staff stood frozen in shock at their sensor displays. "Sir," his communications officer reported with a trembling voice, "the unknown vessel is broadcasting a message requesting immediate audience with consortium leadership. Are our defensive systems tracking them?" "Sir, our targeting systems cannot establish a lock on their ship. The vessel appears to exist in normal space, but our sensors cannot penetrate their hull or determine their capabilities." HFY studied the tactical display showing the sleek, predatory-looking human ship hovering motionless near their most heavily defended installation. "What does their message say exactly?" "Admiral Sarah Chun of the Terran Federation requests permission to come aboard for diplomatic discussions regarding galactic stability and mutual cooperation." Admiral HFY made the decision that would change his life and possibly the fate of galactic civilization. "Grant permission and prepare Conference Room Alpha for a diplomatic meeting." "Sir, should we alert the High Council?" "Immediately, and tell them to stand by for emergency session protocols. Also activate full recording systems for this meeting." 3 hours later, Admiral HFY stood in Conference Room Alpha waiting to meet the representative of the civilization that had eliminated the Veltar Empire in less than 30 days. The human who entered the room defied every expectation he had developed about this mysterious species. Admiral Sarah Chun appeared to be relatively small compared to most galactic species, standing perhaps half the height of a typical Veltar, with smooth skin, short, dark hair, and wearing a simple uniform that showed no obvious technological enhancements, but her presence filled the room with an unmistakable aura of competence and authority that made HFY immediately understand why entire empires had surrendered to human demands. "Admiral HFY," she said, extending her hand in what appeared to be a human greeting gesture. "Thank you for agreeing to meet with me, Admiral Chun," he replied, carefully mimicking her gesture. "Your arrival has caused considerable interest among consortium leadership." "I imagine it has," she said with a slight smile that somehow managed to be both friendly and intimidating. "We tend to make quite an impression." They sat across from each other at the conference table, and Admiral Chun activated a small device that projected holographic displays into the air between them. "Before we discuss current galactic affairs, I want to provide you with some context about human civilization." The holographic display showed star maps, technological demonstrations, and historical records that made Admiral HFY's head spin with their implications. Humans have been observing galactic civilization for approximately 800 standard cycles. We developed faster than light travel and advanced technology while most current galactic powers were still learning to use fire. During this time, we made a deliberate decision to remain hidden while we studied how intelligent species interact with each other. Admiral HFY leaned forward, studying the historical data that Admiral Chun was sharing. "Why did you choose to remain hidden for so long?" "Because we wanted to understand whether galactic civilization was capable of moral development without external pressure. We hoped that intelligent species would eventually learn to cooperate and protect weaker civilizations without needing intervention." The holographic display shifted to show documentation of various galactic conflicts, slave raids, and systematic oppression that had occurred over the past several centuries. Unfortunately, what we observed convinced us that certain civilizations would never abandon predatory behavior voluntarily. The Veltar Empire was simply the largest and most systematic example of institutionalized cruelty in known space. Admiral Chun paused and looked directly at HFY, with eyes that seemed to carry the weight of centuries. Admiral, your consortium has been complicit in many of these atrocities through your trade agreements and diplomatic recognition of slave-holding empires. HFY felt his stomach drop as he realized the implications of her statement. Admiral Chun, the consortium has always maintained strict neutrality in internal affairs of member civilizations. Neutrality in the face of systematic oppression is itself a moral choice, she replied calmly, and it is a choice that enables continued suffering. The holographic display now showed detailed evidence of consortium trade agreements that had directly supported Veltar slave operations. Your neutrality policies allowed the Veltar to trade enslaved beings for advanced technology and economic support. Your diplomatic recognition gave legitimacy to their empire. Your failure to intervene enabled them to enslave over 200 developing civilizations. Admiral, HFY stared at the evidence, knowing that she was absolutely correct and that the consortium leadership had always known the true cost of their neutrality policies. What do you want from us, Admiral Chun? I want to offer galactic civilization a choice, she replied, standing up and walking to the viewing window that looked out at the stars. Humans could have revealed ourselves as conquerors at any time during the past 8 centuries. Our technology is advanced enough that we could have dominated known space without significant resistance. But conquest was never our goal. She turned back to face him, and Admiral HFY saw something in her expression that was both terrifying and hopeful. We came forward now because we finally witnessed atrocities that we could not ignore any longer. But we would prefer to work with existing galactic governments rather than replace them. Admiral Chun reactivated her holographic display and showed a detailed proposal that took Admiral HFY's breath away. We are proposing the immediate establishment of a Galactic Ethics Council with human oversight and participation from all major civilizations. This council will have authority to investigate reports of systematic oppression and intervene, when necessary, to protect developing worlds. All slavery and forced labor will be prohibited throughout known space. Any civilization that continues these practices will face the same intervention that the Veltar Empire experienced. Trade agreements and diplomatic relationships will be conditional on adherence to basic standards for the treatment of intelligent beings. Admiral HFY studied the proposal and realized that it represented a complete transformation of how galactic politics operated. Admiral Chun, what happens if some civilizations refuse to accept these terms? Her expression remained calm, but her voice carried unmistakable authority. Then those civilizations will join the Veltar on their new homeworld, where they can learn to survive without exploiting others. We have already identified 17 governments that meet our criteria for systematic intervention. 3 of them are major powers with significant military capabilities. Admiral Chun projected a list that included some of the most influential empires in known space. These civilizations have exactly the same choice we offered the Veltar: voluntary compliance or involuntary restructuring. The difference is that now they have the example of what happened to the Veltar Empire to help them make an informed decision. Admiral HFY felt the weight of galactic history shifting around him as he realized that Admiral Chun was not making a request or opening negotiations. She was delivering an ultimatum to the entire galaxy. Admiral Chun, you are essentially demanding that galactic civilization abandon Thousands of years of established political and economic systems. Yes, she replied without hesitation. We are. Those systems have enabled systematic cruelty on a scale that we find morally unacceptable. Change will happen with your cooperation or without it. But change will happen. She sat back down and looked at Admiral HFY with an expression that was surprisingly sympathetic. Admiral, I understand that this represents a massive disruption to established order, but consider what we are really asking for. An end to slavery, protection for developing civilizations, and basic ethical standards for how intelligent species treat each other. Are these really unreasonable demands? Admiral HFY sat in silence, knowing that her demands were not unreasonable, but also understanding that they would completely reshape galactic civilization. What timeline are we working with? The Galactic Ethics Council will convene in 60 standard days. Every major civilization will send representatives to participate in establishing the new framework for interstellar relations. Any government that fails to participate or actively opposes this initiative will be considered hostile to galactic stability. Admiral Chun stood up and walked toward the door, then turned back for one final statement. Admiral, we did not announce ourselves to galactic civilization through diplomacy or trade agreements. We announced ourselves by completely eliminating a major empire in 30 days. That was our introduction to known space. I trust that message was received clearly by every government in the galaxy. As the door closed behind her, Admiral HFY sat alone in the conference room, staring at the holographic displays she had left behind and wondering whether he had just witnessed the dawn of a new age of galactic peace or the beginning of humanity's quiet conquest of known space. 6 months after Admiral Sarah Chun delivered humanity's ultimatum to galactic civilization, Admiral HFY stood in the observation deck of the first Galactic Ethics Council station and marveled at how completely the galaxy had transformed. The massive space station orbited a neutral world at the intersection of 3 major trade routes, its gleaming hull representing the new reality of interstellar politics where human oversight had become the ultimate arbiter of galactic affairs. Status report. He requested from his aide, a young officer whose entire military career had been shaped by the post-human era of galactic civilization, sir. All major powers have ratified the Galactic Ethics Accords. The Regelian Hegemony, the Centauri Trade Federation, and the Outer Rim Alliance all submitted their compliance reports ahead of schedule. What about the minor empires that initially resisted? The Drakmor Republic and the Savage Stars Coalition both requested voluntary restructuring after the Kethmer incident. Admiral HFY nodded grimly, remembering the 3-day period when the Kethmer Empire had attempted to organize military resistance against human intervention. The result had been swift and decisive. Every Kethmer military vessel found itself suddenly disabled and drifting in space while human ships appeared throughout their territory to begin systematic liberation of their slave populations. Any casualties during the Kethmer operation? 0 combat fatalities, sir, though several Kethmer commanders suffered what their medical officers described as nervous exhaustion. After witnessing human military capabilities, the entire Kethmer ruling class has been relocated to agricultural worlds where they are learning sustainable farming techniques. Admiral HFY walked to the viewing window and looked out at the stream of ships arriving and departing from the Ethics Council station. Representatives from hundreds of civilizations now traveled here regularly to report on their compliance with the new galactic standards and to request guidance on implementing humanitarian reforms. What is the current status of the liberated slave worlds? Remarkable progress, sir, his aide replied, consulting his data tablet. The Terran Federation provided each liberated world with advanced agricultural technology, medical supplies, and educational resources. Most former slave worlds have achieved food security and established democratic governments. Several have already begun developing their own space travel capabilities using technology that the humans redistributed from Veltar assets. The transformation of former slave worlds had been one of the most impressive aspects of human intervention. Instead of creating dependent colonies, the humans had provided tools and knowledge that allowed each liberated species to develop according to their own cultural values and capabilities. Sir, his aide continued, we have also received reports from the Voltar relocation world. How are they adapting to their new circumstances? Better than expected. Sir, though they required several months to accept that their former empire was permanently dissolved, human advisors visit the world monthly to provide technical assistance and ensure that basic needs are being met. Many former Veltar are now working as agricultural specialists and basic manufacturing technicians. Admiral HFY reflected on how dramatically the galaxy's former slave empire had been reduced to a simple farming community on a desert world. Any attempts at organizing resistance or rebellion? None that have progressed beyond planning stages. Sir, human intelligence capabilities appear to be comprehensive enough to detect and prevent any organized opposition before it can develop. This brought Admiral HFY to the most disturbing aspect of the new galactic order, the gradual realization of just how extensively humans had been monitoring galactic civilization over the past 6 months. Human representatives had demonstrated knowledge of political developments, military movements, and economic activities that could only have come from centuries of systematic observation. Sir, we have received an interesting intelligence report from Dr. Kelena's research team. What kind of report? Analysis of historical data suggests that humans have been actively influencing galactic development for much longer than they initially admitted. Admiral HFY turned away from the viewing window and focused his full attention on his aide. Explain what you mean by influencing galactic development. Sir, the Dr. Kelena discovered patterns in historical records that suggest certain technological advances and political developments were not entirely natural. For example, the simultaneous development of faster-than-light communication across multiple civilizations 3 centuries ago appears to have been facilitated by the discrete introduction of key scientific concepts. Are you suggesting that humans have been secretly guiding our technological progress? The evidence is circumstantial. Sir, but Dr. Kelena believes that humans have been preventing certain dangerous technologies from being developed while encouraging humanitarian advances. Admiral HFY felt another chill as he realized the implications of such long-term social engineering. How long does she think they have been doing this? Conservative estimate suggests at least 500 standard cycles. Sir, possibly longer. This revelation meant that human influence over galactic civilization predated most recorded history and had shaped the development of multiple species without their knowledge. Sir, there is something else, his aide said. Hesitantly, what is it? Dr. Kelena discovered that several major galactic conflicts were resolved through the mysterious appearance of key intelligence information that prevented catastrophic wars. Which conflicts? The Andromedian Border War, the Great Trade Route Dispute, and the Synthetic Intelligence Crisis all ended when critical information appeared simultaneously in the hands of opposing factions. Information that forced peaceful resolutions rather than military confrontation. Admiral HFY sat down heavily in his command chair as the scope of human intervention became clear. They had not simply observed galactic civilization for 800 years. They had been actively managing it to prevent the worst possible outcomes, while allowing natural development to occur. Sir, Admiral Chun has requested a meeting with you. When? She is waiting in Conference Room Alpha. Admiral HFY made his way to the conference room. wondering what new revelations about human capabilities and intentions he was about to discover. Admiral Chun stood at the viewing window when he entered, looking out at the busy traffic of ships representing dozens of species, all working within the framework of human-supervised galactic order. Admiral Sci-Fi, she said without turning around, I imagine you have questions about recent intelligence discoveries. Several questions. Admiral Chun, how long have humans really been influencing galactic development? She turned to face him with the same calm expression that had become familiar over their months of diplomatic interaction, since we achieved faster-than-light travel and discovered that we were not alone in the galaxy. We found a universe full of intelligent species that were trapped in cycles of conflict, oppression, and technological stagnation. So you decided to become our secret guardians? We decided to become gardeners, she corrected, providing just enough guidance to prevent catastrophic outcomes while allowing natural growth to occur. Admiral Chen activated a holographic display that showed the true scope of human civilization. Admiral, what you see around you is not humanity's intervention in galactic affairs. This is humanity's garden that has been growing for over 1,000 years. The display showed human colonies, research stations, and monitoring facilities scattered throughout known space, often hidden in asteroid fields or nebulae where they could observe without being detected. Every major decision that has shaped galactic history for the past millennium occurred within parameters that we helped establish. We prevented wars that would have destroyed entire species. We guided technological development away from planet-killing weapons. We introduced concepts that encourage cooperation and humanitarian thinking. Admiral Sci-Fi stared at the display and realized that human influence was so extensive and subtle that galactic civilization had never been truly independent. Why reveal yourselves now? Why abandon centuries of secret guidance in favor of direct intervention? Admiral Chun's expression grew more serious because, despite our best efforts, certain elements of galactic society were developing in directions that threatened everything we had worked to build. The Voltar Empire represented the logical endpoint of unchecked predatory behavior. If we had allowed them to continue expanding, they would have eventually enslaved or destroyed most developing civilizations in known space. So you decided to step out of the shadows and take direct control. Not control. Admiral, stewardship. There is an important difference. Admiral Chun walked to the conference table and gestured for him to sit. We could have conquered the galaxy at any point during the past millennium. Instead, we chose to guide its development toward greater cooperation and humanitarian values. What you are seeing now is simply the natural result of that long-term effort. Admiral Sci-Fi sat down and tried to process the idea that his entire understanding of galactic history had been fundamentally incorrect. What happens now? Admiral Chun? Now galactic civilization continues to develop, but with explicit humanitarian standards that will prevent the worst aspects of intelligent species behavior.